Allegiance, I would like to have, in honor of her birthday, Dr. Dugal lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nothing to report of a closed session. For recognition, I'd like to recognize the Rotary Club and David Hensler. David, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. I think I'll be able to find your shirt. Come on up, David.
This represents supports the efforts of the South Bay Sunrise, Torrance, Del Amo, and West Torrance Rotary Clubs for the UCLA-USC tailgate event, and the amount of $14,400 is what we are donating, divided by 4 to each of the Torrance High School's athletic departments.
Wow. Say thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Go down and receive it and do a picture?
I'm assuming Tammy's going to want to take a photo.
Hi, I'm Jim Olds. I'm from the Torrance Del Amo Club, and we would just like to, I was the chairman of the planning committee, and we're starting to plan our next tailgate for the next rivalry event. So we hope you all can come out. We really enjoyed the event this
fun.
year, and we really enjoy supporting the schools.
Hey,
Thank you.
Jim, did the lunch do better than the dinner, or did the dinner do better than the lunch, or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like the lunch better?
Yeah, the lunch did real well this year.
Okay, good.
In fact, this will be a record donation for us, I
Oh,
believe. So,
wow.
Good, thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
I think we have a photo op coming.
Yep. Anybody else? Oh, Karen's here, and Scott's here. Yeah, come on, guys, everybody up. This way. I don't need to be down there.
They have a camera there, Tammy.
We'll let the president be there.
You're a part of this.
I know, but
That's all involved.
that's okay. The
Elvis, they're calling you here. Good morning. I know you're good. Oh, come on, Elvis.
At least he's wearing the right shirt, this guy here.
You have another photographer.
I know, I'm assistant tonight. I never have an assistant. Advantage of height, I don't. 1, 2, 3.
One more time without Tammy. 1, 2, and... All right.
That's John
We're
Wood.
good. Take care, Jim.
Thank you.
You guys very much. You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, yes, you can leave.
Or stay, we have wonderful things happening.
All right, moving on, we have a staff presentation information, a report by our student representative. Kayla?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and cabinet. Since the last board meeting, North High has had our dance department was a part of the TUSD joint show at Armstrong Theater. We had our flashback dance on February 23rd. Our ASB hosted our first ever mixer in our knowing. It was an ice cream social themed mixer, and we had South, West, Torrance, Maricosta, and Peninsula. We had our spring blood drive last week on March 1st, and we collected 147 pints of blood and saved 441 lives. We had to have our Goodwill drive postponed due to the rain last Saturday, and we started taking teams for Mind Madness trivia tournament. We're also planning our senior mid-year slideshow, which is going to be on Wednesday. And we're also having our multicultural week next week, which consists of a day celebrating Holi, having an Experience My Culture Day, having a food day for clubs that sell food, and an assembly and night show on Friday. Thank you.
I didn't put on anything.
Mrs. Reagans?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple questions. So for Multicultural Week, Wednesday is the day that you're going to do Food Day?
Yes.
Okay, and it's the usual out in the quad and all the clubs and stuff?
Yes.
That's really cool, because they really do have an amazing array of cultures represented, and then the foods that are available are really neat. And not to put you on the spot, but do you have any feedback from your school about the measure that we passed last meeting about correspondence courses and the limitations?
Well, we had a site council board meeting that I attended on Wednesday last week, and that is when the letters were sent out to some of the students. And some of the people who got the letters were in my ASB, and they weren't really sure of what it was. but because me and my advisor were here, we told them like basically what it was. And most students don't really know about it yet, I think, because at our school not as many people take the correspondence courses. But I think for the kids who will be affected by it, it's going to tremendously affect them.
Okay. And just to let you know, I have been there and talked with the counselors. They're very well versed on what it means and options, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure that they will be helpful to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. We now have the good news student presentation from Arlington Elementary School and Casimir Middle School. These are always very pleasant and enjoyable. So, Dr. Kim.
Thank you, President Wormers. It's my pleasure to introduce two of our student leaders from Arlington Elementary School. This is Jalen Blumetti and Mason Barra Santiago. Can we give them a big round of applause, everyone?
Good evening, President Wormers, board members, Dr. Manning, and Cabinet. Hello, my name is Jalen Blumetti.
My name is Mason Barra Santiago.
We are Arlington Elementary Superstars. We are also members of the 5th grade student council. At our school, we have 3rd and 4th grade student council as well. Each class elected 2 representatives from each grade level. Our role is to encourage everyone to practice positive superstar behavior, which includes lunchtime and recess behavior too. Our student council meets 1 time a week to discuss and plan what we are going to do next and how that's going to happen. Part of our school PBIS system, which is Positive Behavior Intervention and Support System, is rewarding the students with PBIS Starbucks for being respectful, responsible, and safe.
Students can save these up to spend at our school PBIS Starbucks store, which our student council runs. At the end of every month, the Starbucks store will be open for anyone who wants to buy something or make a donation. Items in our store range from 2 Starbucks to 100 Starbucks. Many students also make a donation to raise 500 Starbucks for our Grand PBIS Award of duct taping our principal, Dr. Half, to the wall. One other project our student council supports is Relay for Life. We make lace to sell at the Relay for Life event to donate to the American Cancer Society. We enjoy being the positive role models at our school. We know it starts out with reaching to our community and our school. We are fortunate to have such hardworking and supportive teachers at Arlington Elementary School. We feel proud to be here representing our school. Thank you, board members and superintendents, for supporting us.
Next, I'd like to call up Millie Thornton and Marcos Osorio from Casimir Middle School. Also in the audience, we have Principal Ms. Susie Holmes and Teacher Tina Groves from Casimir.
Good evening. My name is Marcos Osorio. Good evening. My name is Marcos Osorio.
And I'm Millie Thornton.
And I'm an 8th grader at Casimir Middle School. I took Project Lead the Way Medical Detective class during the first semester, and it is an experience unlike any other class. Normally you would sit down in an old chair and get out a pencil and start down writing notes. However, with this class, it's much more interactive with doing projects, experiments, and working together as a group. Instead of studying, regurgitating information, and getting it all out for the next test, you experience the actual question. The experiments are memorable, and instead of finding out the world of the medical field through a textbook, you find it out through experiments. It's unpredictable, and there's something new every single day, and by far is the best PLTW class in middle school. It's a lot of fun, there's videos, and it is the building blocks for a greater future, and at least knowing the basics will hopefully lead to a better life. It was the highlight of my day.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Millie Thornton, and I'm an 8th grader at Casimir Middle School. When I first started the 8th grade, I thought that my elective would be, my elective would be learning a language at North High, but due to miscommunication, I didn't even receive one. I had the choice to wait and see if elective opened up at North or pick an elective at Casimir.
While I was deciding, Mr. Nielsen, our vice principal, told me that I would learn a lot more in Project Lead the Way Medical Detectives with Miss G, and now that I'm in it, I couldn't agree more. The class is full of fun, interactive experiments to learn from, and instead of just simply reading from a book and forgetting all the information the next day. One of our experiments was dissecting a sheep's brain with the high schoolers, which was really fun. And when I told my aunt about it, she told me that she barely even got to do dissections in high school. Project Lead the Way gives us experiments and knowledge that past generations couldn't even dream of. Not to mention the field trip we took to Body Worlds at the Science Center, which was an awesome hands-on experience of what we were learning about in the class, from the heart to the nervous system. Thank you.
Very good.
Before you leave, hang on, I have a question for you. Is that okay?
Yes.
You mentioned working with the high schoolers. How does that work?
We did a dissection of the sheep's brain, and the high schoolers came, and then we had to put toothpicks and tell the different systems of the brain, and then they'd help us if we needed help.
But they came to you at Casimir as part of the class?
We did one of the science labs.
Cool. Thanks.
Very
nice.
Very active Project Lead the Way at North High. I'm assuming you guys are going to continue on. It's that good of a class. Very good. Very good.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, item 9.3, the third annual report of the Torrance Unified School District Independent Citizens Oversight Committee for the Propositions 39 TNU General Obligation Bonds Fiscal and Performance Audit. Dr. Stowe.
Thank you, Mr. Wormers, members of the board. Last month you approved the audit reports that included the measures Y, Z, T, and U. Tonight we have with us Mike Moran, who's the chair of the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee, required under Prop 39 bonds, which is what we have passed here in Torrance. We have an Independent Citizens Oversight Committee, 13 members. Of that, we have between 3 and 5 members of a subcommittee that review every month, starting at 7 a.m. They review all the work warrants and pay applications and make sure that the expenditures that we have each month in the bonds align with the bond language. And so they go through with painstaking detail looking at all of these various things. And so not just Mike, but we've got Scott Uenton, who's also on the Oversight Committee, and Pearl Izuka. The three of them are here tonight, and Mike is going to do the report at the last month's meeting, or earlier, I guess it was last month now, of the Bond Oversight Committee as a whole. They approved the report for the bonds. So, Mike?
Nice to see you. I met Mike as a PTA dad 10 years ago, so this is nice to know he's still involved.
I did my 13 years. I'm free. So thank you, Dr. Stowe, because you took a whole lot of words that I thought I was going to have to say. So that being said, before I ask you to, or before I present these to the board, I would like to give a couple of thanks, if you don't mind. Of course, to Dr. Stowe, Dr. Menon, Gil Mara, and several other members of the school district. Your help has been incredible in answering any questions that have come along, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Tom Schlegel and Angie Garcia from Balfour Beatty. Tom can't do his job without Angie. There's just no way. Angie puts everything together for the subcommittee, and from what I've heard, it went from a mess with filing cabinets to everything laid out nice and neat. And I've watched some progression, but I hear the progression has been huge from the start. So anyway, Angie, thank you. So, all right, and on that note, Dr. Stowe, do I need to do both measures, both pairs separately? I could do them as one? Okay. So I would like to present to the Board of Education and the general public the 9th annual report of the Independent Cities Oversight Committee for measures T, U, Y, and Z.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Again, thanks for all the help.
My pleasure.
Wow, 9 years.
That's right.
That just doesn't seem like 9 years, but yes.
Mike, you want to give those to
Oh,
the chair?
The chair.
all right.
Thank you, sir.
Lots of paper.
9 years?
9?
Years for Line Z.
It's been 10 years since we passed it.
Fast.
Yep,
Yeah, I started on the IOC
you did.
before there was even a Mr. Slagle.
Yeah.
Long time ago. That covered 9.3 and 9.4. I don't need to read 9.4. I'm assuming we covered it. So moving on to 9.5, the Torrance Unified School District Aquatic Center. Do we really need another acronym in Torrance? TUAC.
Tied in with some other thing.
I have someone who would like to speak to that. Should they speak first?
No, the report comes. The
Report comes
presentation
first.
and then the person who wants to speak.
Let's go with the report then.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Wormers. Again, members of the board, I know Ms. Deutsch isn't here, but all 5 of you were at the event on Saturday. There's a tremendous show of support from the community for this historic achievement. I know it was something that many people, including my mom, campaigned for back in the 70s to try to build pools. And so it's tremendous to actually have it here. It's been a lot of work on a lot of people's part. The construction team over at the Aquatic Center. Recently, back in November, we hired John Williams as the pool supervisor, and he's been there every day supervising not supervising the workers. We've got a construction team for that, but really learning the place from the ground up. Every little nook and cranny, and making sure that what's being done was to plan, and he presented an excellent extra set of eyes over there, and so we appreciate John's work. Today I went over and saw him, and he was just ready to get in the pool to pull the lanes across the lane lines on the north side of the pool where we had the water polo matches. And clearly, he needs to invest in some sunscreen because he got a little red. So appreciate your effort. So John's going to go through a little presentation tonight regarding the Aquatic Center and kind of the way that we see it used. And even today, the first day that we had students there were some issues that John addressed, and we'll continue to work through some of the bugs that we expected with the opening of any new facility. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, John.
Well, hello again. It's great to be here. I see everybody's got a water bottle. Almost everybody has a water bottle. It's good. Yeah, the 2-rack water bottle. Those are great to see. I'm glad we all had a good time on Saturday. It was a tremendous experience to have. I did not expect even the number of people we had. It was great to be there and to have y'all there. With regard to introducing myself again, I'm John Williams, pool supervisor. I guess I'm the director if Dr. Mannon called me on Saturday. I appreciate that. I'm a CPO, certified pool operator. I'm also certified by and licensed by the County Department of Public Health as a pool technician. I'm also a Red Cross lifeguard instructor, so it allows me to teach lifeguarding, CPR, AED, and first aid, and other courses. So just to take us back to what our vision was, I'm quoting Mr. Lee. This is the TUAC, the Torrance Unified Aquatic Center. I really like that name. Is a world-class competitive aquatic center. It's something that the city did not have. And I've had a lot of comments over the last 2 days that we've been open to that effect, that this is something that's unique. And that's what we want it to be. This is something unique not only in the South Bay, not just in Torrance. This is going to be a competitive venue, and we'll be treated like that. There's some pictures. These are actually from the earlier. I apologize for those, but as you can see, we've got quite a different opportunities here with regards to the pool. We've got a small warm-up pool. We've got a competitive pool that can be with bulkhead, which allows us to divide up the pool. Gives us a lot of different avenues that we can use to be flexible. We actually moved it around today for the first time to kind of make, and we're already getting ready to move it back because it didn't work out so well. But we've also got a community room, and we can use this as an opportunity for expanded programming in different regards. So how do we put it to use? This has got to be something that we need to use. So first off, obviously this is built for the high schools. We've got right at the front, beautiful, on all of your water bottles, the beautiful sign that has, we want to focus primarily, this is for the high school teams. But second off, there is a critical shortage of a rentable space in the South Bay. I've had that expressed to me so many times, as I mentioned. And these are unique. This venue is unique because it is designed primarily for competitive swimming. The little pool itself is about 3.5 to 4 foot deep, which allows for a little bit more flexibility. But the big pool, the big competitive pool, is made for competition. There is a very limited shallow end. It drops off very quickly. It's 8 foot for the majority of it. It's not made for anything besides practice and competition. And again, like I said, this is capable of hosting multiple events. We had a water polo match and a swim meet occurring at the same time. It allows us a lot of flexibility in programming. Again, as I said, this is for district use. We have our 4 high schools. Finally got that south one up. This was designed for that. We're going to focus on their programs and primarily on the teams that are in season. Again, the priority scheduling has been given to our in-season school sports and then for the out-of-season practices. So that's where our priority will be. We're already looking at different creative ways of using it. And one of the things that these teams have come up with is just using this as, for example, as a swim-a-thon venue, where they go in and just like a run-a-thon, and use that as an opportunity to raise money. We have lots of different ways that we can use this facility. Second loft, I know there have been a lot of expressions of interest from outside rentals. We've already been approached by representatives of USA Swimming, USA Water Polo, US Master Swimming, and actually on Saturday I was approached by someone who was interested from the Special Olympics in using particularly our smaller pool. So we're right now just hearing lots of expressions of interest. We're not making any major decisions yet. We'll be looking at that in the coming weeks and months. And we plan to accommodate as many groups as possible. We want to make this an open place that groups that meet our vision of this being a competitive venue can use it. So we can make this available. We're going to have some limited programming, particularly with the Red Cross. Like I mentioned, I'm a Red Cross instructor, and we've actually set it up now that the Torrance Unified School District is a recognized American Red Cross licensed training provider. So now we can, through my license and others, instructors, we can have CPR, AED, first aid, lifeguarding, and other courses available. Not just to, I've been in the transportation office, if you didn't know, for the last three months as my office, my temporary office, and I've heard lots of expressions of interest in having CPR classes in particular. So those we'll make those available not only to employees, but I think we can actually make that available to. I was actually in a lifeguard class about 2 months ago with a number of students from the Torrance community, from Torrance high schools. So we'd like to open that up, keep them here instead of going down to Long Beach or wherever they're going. Looking forward, right now we're evaluating our system. There are lots of different issues going on with regards to construction, maintenance, and operations. We're just trying to finish off the construction side of it, and I've been working with a couple companies to work on maintenance and establishing some kind of schedule in that regard, and just keeping, this is a brand new facility, we need to keep it up. And we want to make sure that it does keep up so it lasts for the 40, 50 years before we need to have a major renovation. Operations-wise, we're looking at, like I said, we're trying to make this work. It's a unique situation with 4 high schools and having them come together. We're coming together, I think, and it's been working really well. So we're looking at that, and then to expand to the outside rentals. That's all I've got. Any questions?
Dr. Mannon once said there's 1 million gallons of water there. Is that relatively accurate?
That's relatively accurate. I believe it's about 950,000 gallons between the 2 pools.
So pretty close to $1 million gallons in my point of view. It was very impressive on Saturday.
If you bought that at Costco, it cost about $5.
From my point of view, the most impressive thing is it looked exactly like the elevation drawings and everything else that we saw ahead of time. So I didn't notice how they lit up, so let me start with Mr. Steffen.
Okay. I know that the high schools have made schedules for this and how they're going to utilize it throughout the days and the weeks and stuff like that. And I know you're not quite ready to answer the question. I just want to put it out there. Given our school's usage, the primary reason for our school's usage of the pool, what percentage of time will that pool be available for profit?
Yeah.
I can't think of another word.
Yeah, right now the schools are using it primarily during the hours of 2:30 to about 6:30 in the evening. So we would have, and I think they've expressed a little, for water polo, having a little more time after that. So we're talking maybe 5 to 6 hours a day. So you would have really, say most of the morning and a little bit of the afternoon, and then the evenings as well.
Okay, but I heard when I was there that at one point when we had the plunge, the kids would have to go there at 10 p.m.
That's because of the scheduling.
Because of the scheduling. So now they're done by 6:30, 7 o'clock? Okay.
Correct.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I actually came right over from the aquatic center, and we were out. They were out a little bit early because South has a swim meet tomorrow.
Yeah, and recall also, you can through John's scheduling with the coaches. Remember, you can have more than one team that's actually practicing because of the size, which is not possible with the plunge.
And we're doing that.
Yeah, there were 2 teams at 2:30, 2 teams at 4:30. And we're actually looking at, with our changing configuration tomorrow, having 3 teams practicing.
So no early morning ones before school?
6 a.m.?
Not right now.
Okay.
Not right now.
Mrs. Riggins.
Is that it, sir? You're done?
Yes, I'm
okay.
done.
Actually, that was going to be my question, because my son swam for TUSD 15 years ago when there was just a district team. So he asked the same question. So they don't have to go at 6 in the morning now? That's not even challenging anymore. So that was an interesting response from him. But I have a question about the providing CPR, AED, first aid, and lifeguarding classes. Does that mean to our kids and to our staff that there would actually be classes that you would be the instructor and training them in those skills?
Yes, I would like to do that. That's something I've done for a number of years outside of this. Now that we're a provider, we can do that. And that will probably be very limited as we go along. But as we move forward, I'm one instructor. I think we'll be able to make some moves and bring some more in, just on limited basis, class by class, and see how it goes.
Okay. A few practical questions. So we all noticed that you're calling it TUAC. Is that what we're going to call it, or the sign says actually TUSD Aquatic Center?
It does. It does. That's the official name. I kind of like the TUAC thing. It's a little more unified. I don't know.
TUSDAC.
TUSDAC.
TUAC works.
Just curious.
We'll let the community evolve into that.
Yeah, it's evolving.
That's going to be TUAC.
Yeah, it's TUAC.
You could just eliminate the U and just be TAC.
And then two questions from the community from the weekend. One is someone actually who may be watching tonight who is very familiar with the previous facility being used by Torrance High School knew that the baseball diamond was going to be west of the pool, more or less west of the pool. So that when there is wind, which there almost always is there, that actually they were more worried about the dirt than the balls coming over and going into the pool, and they wanted to make sure that there was sufficient coverage for the water, that it won't always have that in it.
Yeah, that's going to be a constant maintenance issue. I've noticed some dirt coming in already, and it's particularly on the deck, but that'll be up to just regular cleaning and maintenance.
Okay, and
Well, and
we have
once
pool covers.
we're going to be renovating that field starting this summer. So
Well, and that may make more of it to start with.
but we're working with the contractor to ensure that when they are moving dirt around, they wet it first in order not to have it too much around.
Then minimize the amount they can move.
We'll have grass in that outfield next fall.
Okay, and then
Just to the other part of that is just there are pool covers that are on the pool that will be put on every night and removed every morning. Primarily, they're there to maintain the energy. It keeps the pool warm rather than keeping it clean.
Right. And then the other question, I did look at the girls' locker rooms, and the girls inevitably said, but aren't there going to be benches here?
Yeah.
And will there be?
Yes, there will be benches. They're I believe, I was told about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
They're coming.
Okay. So they missed them, so they'll be happy
Yeah.
to see them arrive. Okay. That was it. Thanks.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, on the baseball, I actually think they're moving home plate, which used to be on the southwest corner, to the northwest corner, which will actually move the dirt infield further away from the pool than what it is now, correct?
Correct.
So that'll be, as one who played on that field, rather poorly, but played on that field many years ago. Actually, it'll help a left-handed hitter a little bit better, or a right-handed hitter a little better, but that's okay. Too late for me. One other thing is, we're talking about users. Have we talked to the city of Torrance about them using the site for things that they want to use it for, certainly under the joint use agreement for community use, things like that?
I have not, and nor has anyone from the city contacted my office regarding any usage.
Let's put that on the agenda for our next joint meeting, just to see what uses they may have. They have a Parks and Rec department, so they may be able to use it and let the community use it that way.
I was so looking forward to thumbing my nose at them. We really have to play nice?
It's better to play nice than not.
Mr. Lee is always a good counsel on that. You done?
I guess.
You don't have to be.
No, clearly you had a place to go, so I will refrain.
I can wait.
No, it's okay.
I became a lifeguard in Colorado, where I went to high school. They had a pool, and I became a lifeguard from that. And I cannot wait to start to see what we actually generate out of this. So I'm thrilled. So good luck and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
When's the board going to do our Marco Polo game out there?
When it gets above 60 degrees.
Okay, that's good. Pool's warm.
You have a card.
Mrs. Reagan gets to pick that date.
I didn't say anything. You were the one who brought it up.
You get to pick that date, Mrs. Reagan. I have a card from a Julio Zarate from Swim Torrance.
Good evening. Just wanted to thank you first for the opportunity to come and speak about this, but congratulations on the pool. I wanted to have an opportunity to introduce myself and my program. My name is Julio Zarate. I'm the head coach of Swim Torrance. We are a 501(c) nonprofit organization. We are also a USA Swimming registered swim club based in Torrance. We actually swim out of the plunge currently. Part of what I wanted to do was basically just introduce who we were, kind of let you know what our program is about, give you a little bit about our mission and sort of our involvement in the community, what we're trying to build, and kind of pitch we're one of these outside interests for this new facility. We are our mission, if we look at it sort of in two directions, we kind of have a involvement within the community. Part of our standing mission is to be involved in outreach when it comes to inclusion and diversity within the community. We do several things. I've been here for about a year and a half, but we've done since I've been here several things within the community to what we call service projects within our group, within our competitive groups each season. The other part is sort of the competitive mission, which is to develop young athletes in the city of Torrance to be competitive and to become leaders within the community through excellence in swimming. We start our athletes from a Learn to Swim program that attracts anywhere from 5 to 10-year-olds and continue them on through high school programming. Our vision through this time is also to create a program that allows athletes within the city of Torrance to sort of chase their Olympic dream. Prior to me coming to Torrance, like I said, I've been here for a year and a half. I was working with one of the top clubs in the country out in North Carolina. It's called Swim Mac Carolina. My head coach at the time was last Olympics women's head coach. So I had an opportunity there for 2.5 years to work under the Olympic head coach and sort of see the development of athletes throughout that time leading into Rio Olympics. So part of my goal here coming to Torrance was to bring that type of program here and to kind of keep it within Torrance. So one of the things when we see a facility like this is, for us, it's an incredible opportunity not just to sort of help our athletes, but to be more involved in the community, engage with a larger swimming community in the South Bay, because we're not the only program. We are the only program within Torrance. We are the sole USA Swim Club within Torrance. 95% of our membership goes to school in Torrance, or in the elementaries, middle schools, and high schools in Torrance, participate on the high school swim teams. So we do want to make sure that we continue elevating the level of swimming in the South Bay. Currently, I wouldn't say we're bad at swimming, but we're definitely a little bit behind. So a facility like this, it's really, for me, it's exciting to see because it shows an investment in the sport of swimming in Torrance and in the South Bay. And for us, it's exciting time, and we were just really excited to have the opportunity to participate in it and be a part of it, and to help the community of swimming, not just our program, but high schools as well, to improve. So,
perfect timing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
We are now at, if I'm tracking this correctly, 10.1, public hearing to increase developer fees on new residential and commercial industrial projects. Dr. Stowe. Okay. I do. The opening statement is, this is a duly noticed public hearing, the Board of Education of Torrance Unified School District, to increase statutory school fees imposed on new residential and commercial/industrial development projects pursuant to Education Code Section 17620, developer fees. Have any written comments been received from any person as to the reportable fees report since February 23rd, 2018?
No written comments have been received.
Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on the increase in statutory school fees or the increase of statutory school fees resolution presented for adoption in tonight's agenda? Gosh, it's quiet. Closing statement. After any discussion, the president closed the board hearing, so I'm closing this item, this discussion, just like that.
And announce that we will consider it for a resolution.
I'm sorry?
And announce that the board will be...
And I announce that the board will be considering the resolution accepting the report in items DA-12.3. Action items 12.3. Okay, moving on to oral communications of non-agenda items. The Board of Education welcomes input from the public. In order to discuss district business in an orderly manner for the privacy and safety of the speakers and to help staff respond more directly, the board policies require that public presentation to the board comply with certain procedures, including speakers to non-agenda items may address only items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Time allotted for such presentations is limited to 3 minutes. Total time allotted for public input on non-agenda items is limited to 30 minutes. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another. When addressing the board, speakers are requested to state their name, address the president from the podium, and adhere to the applicable time limits. Complaints against employees or students will normally be heard in closed session, and the district's complaint procedure should be followed before discussion with the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. Any person who willfully disturbs this public school meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. Education Code 32210. We have several, in fact, this is a good time. If you want to speak, you need to turn in a yellow card. If you haven't done so, please do so. And allow me to start off. I will begin with Mr. Glasband. And I'm also going to call who's on deck so we can keep this moving quickly. Behind Mr. Glasband is Sarah Duenes.
Oh, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you for being here. I'm here to talk about Hamilton Adult School, and been coming here since August, and we'll just keep coming here. I'm here tonight. Somebody couldn't come who has a special needs kid who went there, went over to Calle Mayor, and then last time I was here, there was a teacher who was asking us to speak up for the kids who are getting shuffled over to Calle Mayor. They don't have, they get on a bus at 6 in the morning, they can't talk, they have extreme disabilities, and they sit on a bus for 2 hours, and then they get there and they go to class and they go back on the bus at 2. So they spend about 3 to 4 hours on a bus every day. So I'm just mentioning that for a teacher who didn't want to talk up, but I'm not a teacher, so I can. I was driving around in the area every weekend and looking for a spot that you guys could put us if we move. I'm talking about the Little Leagues here now. And there is no spot in North Torrance. Every single spot is used every weekend. AYSO's got every field, Lincoln's full, Columbia Park's full, everywhere's full. There's no parking. We're putting out notices to neighborhoods like, how do you feel about the possibility of Little Leagues being in your neighborhood? Nobody wants us to be there. There's no parking spaces. And the thing that really frustrates everybody who's not coming here, they go to the committee meetings, but they don't understand that that's not actually the people who make the decision, it's you. It's hard to get that across in a door hanger. But they're really, really upset that they don't have the ability to talk directly to you guys, the ones who are making decisions. It really upsets them. And the thing that's really upsetting them most is that it doesn't seem to matter what they feel like, and we're the community who's going to be impacted by it. That adult school has been serving our community for over 40 years as an adult school. It's been serving our community as Little League places for about the same amount of time. And we wanted to keep going that. I know some people have kids who went through that program, and we really, really ask you to think very hard. Like, why shouldn't my kids get a chance to go through there? Why shouldn't their kids, when they get to the point, we need a spot for our kids. You can't afford to buy another spot in 20 more years or 10 more years. You won't be able to afford another spot. Real estate values are going crazy, which you know, which is why you're selling it. So, I mean, I see the one-time payoff or even a ground lease as a good financial investment in the future of the whole city of Torrance, but the whole city of Torrance is impacted. Like South Torrance, we go to a baseball field, there's 3 schools. Riviera's got 2 teams out there, and the Tab's out there too, my other kid's in Tab. So I get to see what it looks like on the whole city of Torrance every Saturday. So please keep our Hamilton Adult School as is. Thank you.
Sarah?
Hi, good evening. I don't really have anything prepared this week. Like Alan, I've been attending these meetings since July, and it's been very enlightening coming and learning about how this process works. My son's in kindergarten, so I'm going to be through this process for probably another 12 years. But things that I hear when I come to these meetings, and I understand your position, no one comes here and says, thank you, you're doing a wonderful job. I mean, everybody either wants something or needs something from you, and I appreciate your position. But the comments that I do hear a lot are lack of transparency and poor communication. And I would just like to volunteer myself as someone who would love to figure out how we connect teachers and parents and the school board together so that we don't have these problems. Because when I talk to families and other school boards, there's all these meetings, and the school board is very open to communication, and there's nothing sideways like, you know, if you want to be on a 7-Eleven committee, you could be on one. So I just would really appreciate if we could work harder on doing those types of things. Like I said, I'm going to be here for another 12 years, so I'll be still attending these meetings. And like Alan said, Hamilton has been in North Torrance for 40 years. It's been used for 40 years. I'm the registrar at that Little League. I live at that Little League right now, and it's constantly in use with the girls at the softball and the boys at in the baseball fields. You know, it's going to be a huge impact to our community if we lose Hamilton as a whole, not to mention just what it's going to do for our children. And like Alan said, there's no place for us to go. I do the same thing as he does. I go and drive around, and my husband's like, I see lights off of Inglewood Avenue. Well, great, that's a field in Redondo Beach. That's not going to work for North Torrance. And I just don't know where we're going to go, and I'm really worried because my kid's got, what, probably 6 more years of Little League, maybe more if he's good enough. And I would really like him to always have North Torrance on his uniform. Thank you.
Gloria Gutierrez. On deck is Teresa Belmontes.
Thank you, President, Board, Administration, and representatives for your time. Tonight I'm going to speak to the rejection of the TTA tentative agreement and union member concerns. From what I can tell, there are only a few items to agree on, and yet the tentative agreement was rejected by the membership and not by a small margin. Member concerns were not among the items, including the influx of school programs that have eaten up funds from the budget, eaten up teacher, administrator, and staff's time, and autonomy in the classroom and on campus. Additionally, teachers, staff, and administrators find themselves pulled from campus or the classroom for program-related trainings, often together, leaving campus without critical on-campus support during the school day. I'll be at such a training tomorrow with my administrator. This has occurred even as we've asked for the opposite. We want more time, smaller class sizes, and professional development that doesn't require us to miss precious time with our students. Union members have also seen a dramatic increase in district administration and salaries, even as campus need has increased, including both the amount and intensity of student need. And we're being told that no more support is coming and we must make do, even while demands on our time have increased due to these programs. To that end, let me share that as a counselor, I have the unique role of watching my teachers be impacted by these decisions made behind the scenes and see the students and teachers suffer the consequences. One such decision being pushed on the membership is a change in the calendar. I understand why high school athletes and AP students would want the change, and that the district has on its side nearby districts who have changed. What isn't shared, however, is the opinions of many of those teachers at those schools who still say they'd prefer a later start, or that TUSD teachers were already surveyed and roundly rejected an earlier start date. In addition, a parent survey, as far as I know, has not been conducted. For what reason, I don't know. What I can tell you is that an earlier start would impact student learning absolutely, and not positively. If you had to be in our non-air-conditioned classrooms in September, you'd understand why. A warm classroom causes sleepiness and behavioral issues and impacts student and teacher focus during the time when it is so critical for students to learn school rules and classroom procedures. The effects of climate change will only exacerbate this over the next years to come, and without AC and no district plan to implement this, I saw the $244 million estimate. June gloom learning makes a lot more sense than spending sunny August and early September indoors. And finally, a 1% salary raise doesn't even keep up with inflation or cost of living increases. In short, there's still a lot to work out, and we are asking for a good faith effort and trust in the union membership that our concerns deserve to be heard and addressed. Thank you.
Teresa Belmontes, and on deck is Paul Pribella.
Good evening again. So tonight I actually came to share with you guys that, again, like the rest of the Hamilton crew, we've been here a lot. We probably will be until this finalizes and the 5 signatures are on the paperwork. Because I'm a strong believer in at some point a miracle will happen. It will, probably not. There is rumors that Irvine Company has signed on, apparently, or, circulating that the Irvine Company is going to be the company in charge of this. But again, those are just rumors. I don't expect an answer, nor do I expect to ask the question. I'm just telling you what's out there. I do want to say that another rumor out there is that their community support is not here. And I just wanted to tell you guys, it didn't matter if it was one person coming one time, or if we packed the room every week with hundreds of people in NT Blue. A concern is a concern to a community. And for 5 people to make the decision of an entire, that will impact the entire community, and yet I look at this and none of your guys' families are directly impacted. And so it's hard for us to understand that you guys are the decision makers when, like I said, it would matter either way for you guys. And so for us, it's very hard to swallow. It's easy when you dehumanize a decision to make it in favor of how, it's expected to be. This weekend, due to rain, because I too spend most of my Saturdays at Hamilton, due to rain, we canceled our Saturday games. Got to get some stuff done around the house. And this Saturday, I found a box for my 8th grade year over at Magruder. And in it, just some random keepsake stuff, memorabilia, were 2 certificates. One, sorry, I told myself I wasn't getting emotional. I've been doing that too much. One reads, finalist of the year for athlete finalist of the year. And I didn't play, back then we had sports teams at Magruder. I didn't play on any of those sports teams. I only played softball down at NTGSL. And yet here I am in the 8th grade year getting recognized for my athleticism. That's pretty important, pretty significant, especially for all those football players and cheerleaders and basketball players who actually played on the school's team. The other certificate reads, most improved in social studies. Which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it did. It made me think back. I wasn't a superstar student. I didn't fit in the little box of being, a straight A student. I was just middle of the road. School was hard. Didn't come super easy, but I did it. What is what it is, But I thought about how I felt about social studies growing up. And the fact is, I didn't care much for it. I didn't care much for anything but playing softball, frankly. But it wasn't the fact that I didn't care for it that hit home. What hit home with this second certificate that read most improved in social studies is that the educator who gave it to me cared enough to keep me engaged. And then to recognize the fact that at some point my behavior had changed, and it was important for him to recognize that. Go ahead.
We've reached our limit on 3 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. But that educator is Dr. Stowe, who back then was Mr. Stowe. And it's just really kind of amazing to see the full circle that comes about and to see the differences and where people stand 20 years later. So, thank you.
Paul Pribella, and on deck is Mr. Baramuman.
I'm not always full of vinegar. Tonight, I will go and say thank you to all of you. I have a son. He gets to play baseball all around the country. Florida, Georgia, New York. We just got back from Vegas. We're going to Colorado. All of it because of North Torrance Little League. I also say thank you for providing an education for him that I feel is above and beyond most other cities. My son at 12 years old was attending North High School for half his classes. Biology, geometry, and French. That's partly due to not only us, but the Torrance Unified School District. But I do come, and you guys have heard my passion, because I want to preserve what we've got. And it does, it hurts me to see you guys have North Torrance Little League and Hamilton School District on the shelf as a possible sale. I hear all the excitement about the aquatic center. I hear words like unique, competitive, charity events, development, shortage of space, and how utilized that facility is going to be. You've got a facility right now in North Torrance. It's called North Torrance Little League, that have the same qualities as what was described up there. I invited you guys to come to opening day 2 weeks ago. I don't think any of you attended, but you should have seen. We had over 1,000 people there, and 400 or 500 kids that I got to stand in front of and say, you guys get to play here this year. It would break my heart to sit there and tell those same kids that I've seen so much development from my son get out of that league, that you have nowhere to play. And I understand that you guys have made promises and said that we'll place you somewhere else. Once again, I haven't heard anything. And I know, trust me, that your guys' job's tough. You guys don't get much money from the state. I get it. But you know what? I'm a big boy. I can take it. Right now, I pay a lot of money in all my real estate taxes for my properties. That's okay. Things cost money. But I've been given no options. Just like with North Torrance Little League. It needed rehabbing. I put up the money to do it. But we're not even given a choice. If things cost money, I get it. Tell us. Be upfront. If I got to fork out more money, I'm willing. My kids' education costs money, but I'm not even given that choice. You guys basically are putting this thing on the shelf without any options. All I'm asking for is give us some options. We're adults. We can take it. If we need to give you guys more, if the money that's being given to you now is being spent wisely, then I'm sure the Torrance community will step up. You know, but once again, if we're in the dark, you know, now you see why we always come up with all the vinegar. You know, thank you.
Paul.
Good evening. I have some maps from Google, and pretty much I started looking at what would happen if Hamilton were closed, and a lot of our senior citizens had to go to Levy, and they didn't have a car, and they had to take public transportation. Torrance has pretty good public transportation. I actually had to use it this year as a result of not being able to drive because I had an accident that broke my back in half. But I was looking at the bus, and you're looking just to go from Hamilton, and if you wanted to arrive there by 10 a.m., you had to get on the bus at 8:51, and that's assuming you live by, you know, the 90504. You know, it's not inaccurate, but because everyone lives in different parts of North Torrance. But just from Hamilton to Levy, it would take you about 50 minutes on one route. If you look at the next page, that's another route. You look at the next page, and that's another route. Then you look at how much walking time that is, or like half a mile up to walking. Once you get off the bus, it's about half a mile to get to Levy. You look at the other route, it's about the same thing. It's about a third of a mile, 0.3. And the other one, these are things that, you know what, at all the 7-Eleven committee meetings, and we don't even know. It hasn't been up front where all the adult classes will be going, and what are they going to do with them during the day. One time they say they're not going to North High. Sometimes they say North High is an option. Levy's an option. We don't know. I'm just assuming it's going to go to Levy, and they're going to absorb the classes. So I'm looking at that, and it's not very open and accessible to our senior citizens, and that's something that should have been considered. It'd be nice to hear from, you know, at the 7-Eleven committee presentations to say, you know what, Levy will be absorbing. This is what we, and at the same time, have the 7-Eleven committee presented. This is how it's going to impact their commute, the transportation there. But that's not being addressed. That's not being brought up. And it's at a lot of these 7-Eleven committees. It's just a lot of questions. I'm still trying to get it. You know, I understand that the district's very busy, and I'm still waiting to hear about the parent education level to see if there is a higher need in the north side. I haven't heard anything from the district other than we can't provide it, and I did bring it up 2 weeks ago. So my next recourse is to go to the CDE or what, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. So I don't know if it's just a more matter for time or if I needed to file a uniform complaint, but it'd be nice to kind of have this communication going so that it's, at the end, if it does have to, you do have to sell because it's a budget crunch, then include us in the process and be transparent so we can say, okay, it is a democratic process. I understand that there's a need for education in this area, and I understand the importance of it, and I understand that it's not cheap. It's very expensive. I understand that benefits are going up and everything, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Margaret Talamantes. She had to leave? Yes. I'm sorry to hear that. That concludes our oral communications. Moving on to discussion and action items. Instructions to the public. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda topics are permitted 3 minutes per topic. Total time granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes per topic. The board policies require the public presentation of the board comply with certain procedures included in items 2-4 listed in oral communications. 12.2, approve the positive certification of the second interim report for 2017-2018. Dr. Stowe.
Motion.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. A motion? Dr. Stowe.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wormers. Members of the board, remember at this time last year, we were asking you to approve a qualified budget. This year, it's different. We're recommending to approve this budget. The numbers are built on the the governor's January proposal. We kind of went through this. Mr. Ron Bennett last 2 weeks ago talked a little bit about the governor's proposal, and so at this point in time, always the first meeting in March, we bring to you the second interim. This takes into account all of the changes that we see. The budget staff in the fiscal services office, they monitor the budget on a regular basis, daily, really, and make changes based on ADA or number of teachers that may be left over the summer and the cost differential in the fall. Lots of different things come into play. Increase in costs, maybe what a specific expense, our special ed staffing maybe increases or decreases depending on the needs of the students that are enrolled in any given year. And so based on all of this information and then the information that we have from the governor's office based on his proposal, we put together this presentation for you. And so as we look at the assumptions, there are a number of things that we do know. And we build these budgets based on these assumptions. One of them is the statutory COLA, which you can see for the next 3 years, or this year and the next 2. The LCFF gap funding percentage, we know that was closed, so it was increased, and I have the specific detail on a future slide, but the gap funding, the gap is essentially 0 starting next year. The increase in the base funding that comes with this gap closure is additional $6.6 million for next year. And then the ADA that we use decreases by 250 students from 17-18 to 18-19. From there on, we're looking at roughly about 100 student decline. Additional information that we do know, this is information from the state, are the CalSTRS and CalPERS increases that will continue into the early 2020s. You can see there the dollar figure for those for next year and the year after, and this year actually, about more than $2.5 million when we look at those increases as a percent year over year. And so we included this in the first interim back in 2016 so that you could see the dollar effect, because when we show you a percent, you can't tell really what's that dollar impact on the district budget. And so we have that there. In addition, we do not have negotiation settlements for any of the unions for the current year, and that is reflected there as well. So what are some major changes from the first interim? One is the gap closure, which made a lot of headlines in newspapers. We were about 97% funded, and now we'll be 100% funded based on the local control funding formula. Again, it's 3% additional based on top of what we have, and that's great. But we had built in 1920 that we would be fully funded, or in 2021 that we would be fully funded, and so this increase in dollars is essentially a 2-year increase in dollars, because beyond that we were expecting to be fully funded based on what the governor had put in place with the LCFF. The second major change from the January proposal are the identified one-time funds. We know what that number is, and in December we assumed that there was going to be additional one-time funds, but we didn't know what that number is. So this year, the one-time funds that we estimate based on the governor's proposal are $6.8 million, and you can see there what we've received in previous years from those one-time funds that the governor has put in place. We have, when we go through this budget, you'll see that this entire $6.8 million we've applied to the reserve, and so you can see how that plays out when we look at that closely. The third major change from the first interim are the declining enrollment. Again, we talked about this before, and Mr. Bennett discussed this as well. Most urban, suburban areas are seeing some sort of decline, built-out communities, and so we're looking at a decline in enrollment again, a little higher from this year to last year, but we think it's going to level out based on the projections that we get. And again, when we say decrease in ADA, that means our enrollment's different from ADA, right? Our ADA is the students that are coming to school, and thankfully we have about 96–97% of our students attend school on a daily basis. And so we have one of the higher percentages of ADA, and so we want to really continue to strengthen that and make sure that kids come to school, which they do. So as we look at our multi-year projection, you can see that the net surplus or deficit in this case in 17-18 is $4.5 million. The net surplus, because we've applied that $6.8 million in one-time funds, looks at a almost $2.3 million surplus. And then because we don't know in 1920 if there are going to be any additional one-time funds, we're back to the spending more than we receive, and therefore in a $6.3 million in deficit. So the multi-year projection, as these play out, you can see the beginning and ending fund balance. They are adjusted by the numbers on the previous slide. And really what we have to certify with the county, and that's the purpose of the presentation here tonight, is that we have adequate reserves in the third year out. So it's the current plus 2 subsequent years. And our ending fund balance projected in 1920 is slightly over $33 million. Components of the ending fund balance, as you can see, and we've done this every first and second interim, we talk about this. And so the funds that are committed for student achievement, teacher credentialing, textbooks, Common Core implementation, and other one-time expenses that the board has authorized in prior meetings, specifically those one-time expenses dating back to June of 2016. Those are, in addition, for textbooks, for example, we set aside on an annual basis because we know we're going to have to buy textbooks at some point in science and some other subject areas, and so in social studies, as well as just replacement for textbooks. So we set aside dollars every year out of the base grant in order to do that, about $800,000. And then the second line there, the dollars committed for targeted students under the local control funding formula. These are the supplemental funds that we receive from the state. These are spent on students that are English learners, low income, or foster youth to increase or improve services for those students. And we carry a balance there, but I know Dr. Crumpy and her staff work with the schools. There was a workshop today with some of our leaders at the site in the development of the LCAP. And so any of those expenditures that you see in that category come through as part of the local control accountability plan that we share with the board in June, and then ultimately gets approved in the last meeting in June. So what's next? We want to recommend that the board approve this second interim report with a positive certification that we continue negotiations with all the bargaining units. In May, we will bring back the May revise. In the middle of June, we bring you the public hearing for both the LCAP and the budget, and then the final meeting in June, ask for its adoption. And at the end of June, the state will adopt their budget, and then within 45 days, we make any adjustments to our budget and then submit that to the county. Take any questions at this time.
I'm sure, again, I didn't pay attention how they came in. I'll do them the opposite direction this time. Mr. Lee.
This pension cost is always something I focus on, maybe more the last few years than before, but memory serves me right, when I got elected in late '07, our contribution to STRS was 8.25%. I've confirmed that. And it's going to end at the end of this process at 18.3. 2020 was what they'd anticipated last year. Even though from what I read, they actually still have the ability to raise it as high as 20. They do. But they have not anticipated raising it to 20, even though PERS has gone to 20. A little frightening there, but that's okay. So that's only about 119% increase in what we've been paying over the last 11 years. But as I learned when we were at the school board's conference in San Diego, the state's attitude is the pension problem's solved. And to some extent, that's a good thing for everybody, because the pension is a promise that we make to the teachers and to all of our employees that that's something they're going to have now. And they share in that cost because their costs have gone up as well. I think they're going to land at a 14% or so, I think, when theirs is all done. Somewhere around there. So not to say that we took it all. They've gone from roughly 8 to 14%. So that'd be about a 75% increase for them. So, it's equally shared. I don't think the state has taken quite as big a hit out of their share as everybody else has, but so be it. But when we look at this budget, I mean, those are kind of the hidden costs that nobody ever sees, but it's the cost of running the railroad. And, it's certainly not what, the city's paying, so we're kind of lucky there in some places. Some of their costs are as high as 68 cents per dollar of payroll. But it's still a major consideration. But I think the good news to it, and that's what I kind of wanted to bring up, was according to STRS projections, this should be enough to right the ship so we can keep the promises going forward. But it's still, 6% of our payroll base is a big number. That's like $6 million, isn't it? Or what's 1% roughly?
Well, it's additional.
But 1% of our payroll base is how, I always remembered it was 1%. 1% was 1 million, but I forget. But anyway.
No, it's probably closer to 3.
Yeah. 1% is 3, so that, represents, roughly.
No, less than that, but yeah, about 1.8.
1.8. So, I mean, it's representing roughly $25 million more we're paying a year in cost than what we had 11 years ago. So when people talk about we're fully funded, adjusted for inflation, that's all fine and well, other than we didn't have this $25 million bill that we had 11 years ago or 10 years ago. So, enough to be said on that, but it's just kind of one of those things we've got to deal with going forward, and it's probably not stopped, and hopefully they don't raise it to 20%. So anyway, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Wormers.
Mrs. Reagans.
All of these numbers do not account for any raises in any of these years for any of our bargaining groups. Is that correct?
Let's remember, we do have a settlement with SEIU 99, CSEA 19, CSEA 45. We do not have a settlement for TTA, nor do we have settlements out into the future.
Okay. So if there were a settlement for any increase in salary, that would not be represented here, because we don't know what that might be into the future. Just the very first page, I have to go back to your first assumption, where it looks as though if I were someone from outside looking at this, LCFF gap funding percentage is 100% in 1819 and 1920. So that means we're getting every single dollar we should get, and that's absolutely adequate to provide education for our kids.
Where you're incorrect is using the word adequate.
Right. And that's where I was going, was what does that mean? We're 100% of what?
Actually, what that brings us back to is the 07-08 funding level. So let's remember that. And obviously, as Mr. Lee was pointing out, we have expenses that are very different now in 2018 than what they were in 07-08, including the additional costs that we've talked about a lot about special education. But I think the other piece, and Mrs. Reagans, you've spoken about this now for 13 years because you've been with me when you have spoken at this, and that key is what it says statutory COLA there.
Yep.
Mr. Bennett pointed this out at the last board meeting, actually asked me some questions about it, which I responded to. If in fact the formula is not changed, that will be the total amount of dollars that school districts will receive, period. Therefore, the formula has to change in the discussion that we had, because let's say the statutory COLA in 1819 is 2.51%. The actual cost of running the district, which are electric, utilities, PERS, STIRS, all that kind of stuff, will be somewhere around 6 to almost 7%. So the statutory COLA will not cover just the cost, and Mrs. Reagans has said this for many years, of rolling from one fiscal year to the next fiscal year.
That's between the cost increases for water power, plus step and column increases.
Correct.
Insurance costs more. All these things cost more. It's a 6 or 7% increase every year just to keep our lights on.
Correct. And so when you, well, and it can change, it can vary, but when you graph all this out, you can actually see it better. But that's why the formula has to change, and there are two bills, one by our own Assemblyman Murastucci, AB 2808, to actually increase funding aspirationally above what the COLA is for future years. There's also a bill, I don't have the bill number, it is also from one of our representatives, Ben Allen, who is our senator. However, although we like to have funds ongoing, what the Senate bill does is actually take those dollars that Dr. Stowe showed you in one-time money and allocates them to ongoing. Now, we like ongoing, but in terms of how that changes the budget, not much in the next year. In the out years it will, but because we've already accounted for it as one-time money in next year, it would not change much. It would change in those following years out. But this is very difficult stuff from a financial standpoint that is difficult to explain. And I think it's as difficult to explain as it was under the old formula when I used to try to explain the old formula to people. But the new formula certainly, and we knew it, and we said it, was going to have its drawback when only would bring us to the 07-08 level, and then after that, there is no formula. other than what you see up there for those COLAs.
Right. Actually, one last comment. So many, in fact, maybe all of us were here in 07, 08. Those of us sitting, you were not?
I was not.
Okay, well, the rest of us were, and I do not remember thinking we were particularly flush with money at that point and had lots of extra funds. In fact, we were struggling even then, because 08 is when we passed the first bond measure, and I remember clearly the issues surrounding that. So it's not to say that even if that gap has closed, that brings us sufficient funds that we can do everything we should be doing for our students.
Well, I think a key point that Mr. Bennett made, I'm not sure everyone completely caught it, is remember the formula allocates money in terms of the goal to provide more funds in the supplemental side and the concentration, which we don't receive, to certain student groups. So really what we have, and we can debate the number, but I saw a piece today that ranked California in per pupil funding at 46th among the states. However, you're going to have, and you have right now, and he pointed this out, some districts that receive larger amounts of supplemental and concentration, that if you just took those districts, they'd probably be 34, maybe even 30. And then there are other districts in California who would be 50th if you had made that comparison level to other state funding around the country. So that's the part that a lot of folks don't understand about this particular formula.
And we are at the lower end of the concentration.
Well, we receive no concentration,
right.
So we're at the lower
the
end.
50.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Stephan, you had your light lit, then you turned it off.
I did. No, I was going to go over the budget said we had a 7% plus reserve a few years out, but then again I was going to bring up the same idea of the contract negotiations are still going on and things like this are still going on. And I think pretty much all the questions I was going to ask were covered, so I turned my light off.
All right. We need to vote on the positive certification of the second interim report. So all in favor? Aye. Aye. There's just not enough money in education in California. Just not enough money in education in California.
Too many students.
Yeah, that's really one approach.
Yep.
Adopt resolution, 12.3, adopt resolution number AS-10-17/18 of the Board of Education of Torrance Unified School District to increase statutory school fees imposed upon new residential and commercial/industrial development projects pursuant to Education Code 17620, developer fees. I think
motion to approve, and there's no second reading on this, is there? It's just a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
That motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
12.4, adopt resolution AS-11-17/18, resolution of the Governing Board of Authorization, the borrowing of funds for fiscal year 2018 and 2019, and the issuance and sale of one or more series of 2018-2019 tax and revenue anticipation notes, trans, therefore, in participation in the California School Cash Reserve Program, and requesting the Board of Supervisors of the county to issue and sell said series of notes.
Make a motion.
Any motion?
Motion to approve, and as I make the motion to approve, I will remind everyone that we have never used this money in the 11 years that I've been up here, and it's just, in case the world comes to an end, we can make a phone call and get a couple of bucks.
We don't anticipate using it.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying that, but when you read it, it looks like, oh God, they're out raising money, borrowing money, but we do this every year just in case.
Because it's date certain, so that if we don't approve it, then we cannot do it.
Right.
Mr. Lee's complicated motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have now moved on to the consent agenda.
I will make a motion to approve general function consent items 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Second.
All those in favor of 14 through 19?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Do we have administrative bond services consent item? Do I have a motion?
No, that was, no, he did that. That's-
Yeah, I included that.
I thought you stopped at 19. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant 20. I'll modify my motion to include 20. I said 20, okay, good.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Well.
I'm going to ask Tammy for the video on that one. I've got replay. All right, so
okay.
20 is included. So we are now at the information section, board calendar. And?
We're waiting with bated breath about Scrock.
Oh, do I have things to tell you?
Oh, no. Really?
Really?
All
It was
right.
actually a very productive meeting last time. We have begun the process of rewriting the joint powers agreement, and it's going to be complicated, is a polite way of putting it.
Has there ever been a simple one?
Well, what they want to do, and they want us as board members of SoCal Rock to provide changes that we want to see to the JPA, and then they're going to come, stop your chuckling, then they're going to incorporate those changes into a new JPA and present them to the SoCal Rock board, and then we're supposed to bring that new JPA back to our individual boards. So,
By 2020?
Yeah. Actually, I was supposed to have all this to them by the 8th. I'm like, give me a break. I got a day job. I'm not certain how this is all going to go, but for the first time, I saw two things. One, we have a representative from the School District of Inglewood. And secondly, I actually saw us be a bilateral welcoming discussion. They didn't just scream and yell and hate me in general. So I felt very positive about the experience. But we'll see. I'm not super optimistic, but I'm much more optimistic than I was the meeting before when 4 out of the 5 members outwardly hated me. So I think that's an improvement.
Outwardly hated.
It was obvious. It was very obvious that when 3 or 4 of them left, they were not at all happy with my presence. But anyhow, Mrs. Reagan.
So is Inglewood out of state?
not.
So in fact, that board member doesn't have any actual jurisdiction.
The board is meeting, however, they cannot actually take action.
Right. Okay.
She has jurisdiction at SoCal Rock. She's the SoCal Rock board member from Inglewood.
I wonder how that actually works legally. That's interesting.
I don't know.
That's why they haven't
Don't
had a
waste
sitting
Spence's time
member
on
up
it.
until now.
And don't waste Spence's time on it.
And I assume that you guys are working with SoCal Rock Legal on this process, because...
Well, that was part of the discussion. What I wanted to have us do is send all of our superintendents into a closed room with their attorneys and rewrite the JPA the way they want it to be, instead of us wordsmithing it or us even providing ideas for it, because the superintendents actually have access to the attorneys that have access to how we want a JPA to look. I got very little traction with that idea because they believe that they don't understand the concept that they provide policy and direction, not actual impact on things. They actually want to rewrite the JPA themselves. And I won't do that. I'm going to point out things that are wrong with the JPA and they need to fix it. And that's the extent of what I'm going to do. And then when I come back to you guys, I'm going to expect the same kind of input. You tell me what you don't like about the JPA, Dr. Mannon on into us, and then we will present that back. I just want to keep the ball moving forward because it hasn't been for the past several months. So in some ways, I'm thrilled. It actually didn't feel hugely challenging, just moderately difficult.
So do we need to do something as a body to look at the agreement and determine what aspects are problematic?
I believe the process that is required under the current JPA agreement is that the SoCal Rock Board has to move through that, and then a new JPA, or could even be the same JPA agreement, is then sent to the local districts, which would then be you. And so it would be agendized, and then you would have a discussion about any of the points, and of course we would try to point out any new points or change in that JPA.
But you'd ask for input too.
Well, before today, my plan, because I left the meeting with the assumption that my plan was to provide the 4 of you copies of the original JPA and look for input from you guys on what you wanted changed at our level, including Dr. Mannon's level. I was going to give it out to all of us, and we were all going to put input. Today, I was told, no, we only want you, Michael Wormers, because you're the only sworn-in elected official on the SoCal Rock Board. We only want your input, and then we will modify the JPA and then come back to us with a modified JPA. I think we're adding an extra step, but I was sure. You want to do it this way? I don't care. As long as we're moving forward, I'm gung-ho. You got to remember, 3 meetings ago, I got my butt chewed by one of the members. So this is, to me, this is a huge improvement.
Yeah, we had that, I had that discussion with them when I was on that board, that I may be the member of that board, but I work at the behest of my board behind me, so I am not the only person that should be participating
I
in the
offended
process.
everyone when I made this statement. My number one priority is the Torrance Unified School District. My number two priority is the Southern California Regional Occupation Center. And everyone was just beside themselves that I would have that kind of thought. And I'm like, are you not members of your own school board? Would you throw your school district under the bus on behest of SoCal Rock? Well, no, but we care about their needs. I can see that, as do I, but my priorities are something I'm willing to talk about, and apparently they're not. So you did this for a while, you know.
Yeah, I did.
Actually, I'll tell you why the last meeting went so well when we don't have a microphone on. Okay. So we're now speaking, I did my little part. Other comments from the board?
I do have one thing.
It was actually Mr. Lee or Mr.
I mean, Mrs. Reagan can go first.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, I just wanted to do classified employee anniversaries for this month. We have a number of them. Those wonderful people that keep our schools running and operating, and our students happy and healthy in our schools. That for 10 years of accredited service, we have Risha Denny, Randine Snackenborg, and Alexandra Vargas. For 15 years of accredited service, we have Andrea Robinson. And for 20 years of service, I have Edison Tuazon, I think is how it's pronounced. Is that right? Is that how Edison's last name? Okay. And then for 25 years of accredited service, we have Deborah Yurta. So we have some folks that have been with us for a very long time, and thank you for being there for our kids.
How has Edison stayed so current, being here for 20 years?
That's an interesting question.
I mean, he must be, I know he's good, but I didn't realize he was that good to be able to get outside of our closed sphere in technology.
He's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
Oh, there you go.
You,
I like that.
I'm sorry, my question is based upon technology. A lot of reasons people will move from one company to another in technology so they can broaden their skills and their horizon, but dealing with new equipment and new stuff. He must be brilliant. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
well, he's a, you know, what we like, a lifelong learner. So he's all constantly learning new things. So.
Great.
Very good.
And I have two more things to mention. I had the opportunity to go to the elementary spelling bee that was held this past week, and the words that those students spell is amazing. I can't even pronounce them. I don't even know what they mean, and then the kids can spell them. So that was really an amazing process to watch. And also the college fair happened over the weekend, and it was really a nice turnout and a nice event. And thanks, folks from the community, for coming. And every time we think, oh, you know, this is sort of an antiquated thing it's seen its time, we see thousands of people come out and utilize the resources. So as long as there's the need, we will provide for it. So thank you, for Torrance Council of PTAs, for doing that. And that's it. Thanks.
Mr. Stephan.
I hesitate to do what I'm about to do, but I would do it anyway. Over the last month or two or three, there have been a lot of people talking about very passionately about things, whether it's Hamilton site or whether it's the negotiation process and things like that. And all points all passions have a lot of validity to them. I get it. I understand. I'm finding out that things are happening that I didn't know are happening. You know, what company is going to take over what project that we haven't even heard about yet. But this is, you know, I understand the rumors. I get that. I get the fears. I get the anxieties. And when it comes down to it, and I, you know, I'm not taking offense at anything, but I just want to make, and I'm pretty sure if I say this correctly, if I don't say it correctly, I'm not speaking for everybody, so let me know. But whether it's the Hamilton site, whether it's negotiations, whether it's how we address, you know, fundraising at school sites, so things that we've gone over the years, I am pretty sure that each and every school board member, well, let me back that up. A school board has to look globally at every issue, not singularly at a particular issue, because the unexpected, unintended consequence of a decision here is going to affect something over there. And all of us have 20, lower than we did before, 25,000, that when I was started, now 22,000 plus students that we are responsible to provide the best, most wonderful education. And there are a lot of conflicting viewpoints on how to do that, whether it's about money, whether it's about method, whether it's about trainings and this kind of stuff. So my bottom line here is that what seems to be a singular decision, whether it's the ones that are being discussed today in the last number of months or other things we have discussed, are not singular for me when I sit up here. They are a global thing, and they affect all sorts of things and not just a singular group or a singular issue. So I just kind of want to have people understand that there is no ulterior motive. There is no this or that. There is a group of people, whether you agree or disagree, and we haven't made a decision on any of these things yet, so I don't know if you can agree or disagree with them, but that have to consider all, what do I want to say, all groups that we were elected to defend, I guess, because in my case it's students first and things like that. So I understand the passions, and I shouldn't even bring all these things up, but just I want to kind of reassure people that there is no dark, evil Darth Vader out there up here under the table going, sell Hamilton, that kind of thing. But these are things that show up. These are things we have to consider. These are things, whether it's negotiations, whether it's to build a pool or not to build a pool, because that was an argument we had when I first ran for the board. Don't build a pool, that's crazy. But then the people said they wanted a pool, so we responded to that. So on that basis, I'm kind of done with my comments, because I'll just mumble on for another 45 minutes. So, but hopefully one could understand that, or be reassured that we do hold the interest of the staff, we hold the interest of the students, and we hold the interest of the community incredibly high. Will people agree with everything we do? No, and that's okay. But will we regret something we did maybe 20 years later that was the worst decision we ever made? I don't know. But we do have the best interest at heart. I am done.
Mr. Lee.
Pool opening was cool. I think staff did a great job, and I want to thank staff, Tammy, everybody involved in that, of basically herding everybody, custodial staff, other staff, setting up the chairs, pulling them down on a Saturday. I know it's not a lot of fun, but it was what it was. Balfour Beatty for the hot dogs and hamburgers and other assorted things. I see you got the president out for that, so hopefully you gave him a double cheeseburger as opposed to a single. So that's all good. I think I've got to say, since I've been a school board member, we probably drew more people for that event than I can think of anything like that.
Hull probably drew the most.
You think Hull we drew more?
I think Hull drew the most, and this was second.
Okay, so...
They were real close, though. They were real close.
And tell you what, it ain't an easy place to find. So, hopefully the community will find it. In fact, if anybody's actually, the 8 people out there watching it, if you're curious, go in the driveway just south of the Scrock light and you'll find your way back in there next to Sherry High. Another thing, which is just kind of good news, is Tim Drenfado, who's a South High graduate and former offensive coordinator for Michigan, is now going to be coming back to University of Southern California as a coach. So that's a very good thing for, I think USC, and that's kind of what I'll have to hear about that at home. But anyway, so no, I just thought, South High grad does well, and so he's coming back to town. Great, thanks.
USC seems like a cult. Just based upon what I've seen from just from watching it did.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Yes, you do.
All in favor?
Aye. Because they win.
I got no problem with winning. I just said they seem like a cult.